All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today. This is our last session in our AI for You series, a prescription for AI in healthcare. As we all know, healthcare leaders today are under intense pressure to do more with less, all while burdensome admin work and patient and compliance demands keep growing. In today's webinar, we'll show how AI helps augment decision-making and alleviate some of these burdens, all while keeping humans at the center. My name is John Girdler. I'm a consultant with our advisory services team here at The Groove, and I spent over 7 years in the healthcare sector and have seen how different organizations are trying to address these challenges. I'm joined by my colleague, Heather Hudnall, Chief Clinical Officer and Healthcare Leader at The Groove. And Heather is a nurse and has 18 years of experience in healthcare, and as a provider has experienced firsthand the pressures facing the industry. So Heather, I'll turn it over to you to introduce yourself and talk us through where we're headed in today's conversation.
Thanks, John, and thank you all for joining us today. I apologize for not being on camera, just having some technical difficulties there. But my name is Heather Hudnall, and as John mentioned, I've spent many years in healthcare, starting as a bedside nurse, leader, and now in the healthcare consulting side, giving clinicians a voice when it comes to technology and to deliver a better healthcare experience for everyone, which is why I'm very excited to discuss this relevant and very hot topic of AI today. So we'll move on to the agenda, and in today's webinar, we'll start by highlighting some of the top challenges and pain points in healthcare today. Then we'll show AI in action with real use cases where AI is already adding value. Next, we'll talk about getting AI ready and overcoming some common barriers to AI adoption in healthcare, and then some tips for success. And then we'll talk about how the Groove can help you harness the power of AI to build a more resilient, human-centered healthcare system. And then we'll have some time at the end for a live Q&A, but please feel free to use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen throughout the webinar. Our moderator, Caitlin, will be monitoring it.
I think this conversation is really timely and important, and it's going to resonate with our diverse audience we have today, who I imagine have a variety of roles in the healthcare space. I do think one thing on everybody's mind is how does the use of AI, which is a non-human tool, ultimately allow us for more of a focus on the human side of care with our patients at the center? Can its use really allow more time for focusing on caring for patients? Heather, how is the use of AI being perceived by nurses and other frontline care providers?
Thanks, John. I've seen and heard a lot of excitement and also some concerns about AI from clinicians. But before we dive deeper into that, let's start by talking about some of the top challenges healthcare is facing today that AI can potentially help with. So, healthcare leaders are operating in one of the most complex regulatory environments we've ever seen. Seems like every month brings new rules, regulations around staffing ratios, quality mandates, data privacy, and cybersecurity and reporting requirements. And just recently, the Joint Commission released some guidelines for responsible AI technology in healthcare. So, it's a constant balancing act, meeting regulatory demands while still driving innovation and improving care. Next, workforce shortages and clinician burnout continue to strain care teams. We're constantly asking fewer people to care for more patients, and those people are very tired. Studies indicate that 1 in 2 clinicians are experiencing burnout or moral distress, is what I'm hearing as a more accurate term. And on top of all of this, the US healthcare workforce is anticipated to fall short of 3.2 million healthcare workers of what's needed to meet patient demands by 2026, which is right around
Wow.
the corner.
Yeah, that's a huge shortage of workers. And as you said, that's coming up quick. I see that next challenge there on the slide is recruiting and retaining the right talent. So Heather, how's that going to impact recruiting?
Well, it already has been impacting it. Healthcare is in the middle of a talent crisis with one of the biggest challenges being people. Recruiting teams are under immense pressure, juggling candidate engagement with record number of open positions, all while relying on those outdated manual processes and disconnected systems that just can't keep up anymore.
Wouldn't that contribute to a lot of organizations missing out on top level talent? I imagine that leaves a lot of critical roles open, and going unfilled for weeks.
Yeah, it does. And it's unfortunate because it impacts the entire workforce and patients. But luckily, we've got a great AI use case we'll talk about later to help address this. And then lastly, but not least, cost pressures. Uh, it's getting worse. Some of the numbers on my screen, it's really hard to look at. Labor now accounts for over half of hospital expenses, with overtime, contract labor, and burnout pushing costs to record highs. Burnout alone costs the industry 4.6 billion with a B a year. Meanwhile, reimbursement rates lag behind inflation, creating a deficit that no amount of cost cutting can fix. So, on top of all of this, demand is continuing to rise, driven by aging populations, chronic disease, and staffing shortages. So hospitals are being forced to do more with less.
And I'm curious to hear from our audience. I think you might have seen a poll that got launched there. Do any of these resonate with you guys? So again, give you just a second if you want to select, you can select multiple answers, select one. Which of these resonate with you? I'm curious to hear what our audience thinks.
Oh,
Thank you guys. Yeah, seeing the answers come in. So it seems like all of these are really relevant to today's group, and it's clear that healthcare professionals are can be discouraged, and some of these challenges can be really overwhelming. I imagine most people got into the healthcare space as a career because they enjoy helping people and have a passion for helping others. So balancing that with providing high quality care is really challenging. So Heather, I'm curious, can we maybe dive in? Have you seen some practical examples of where AI can make an impact and remove some of these burdens?
yes, John, I have, and I'll tell you, I'm not surprised by the number one challenge being clinician burnout. Like I said, I can attest to that. So today I'm really excited because we're going to be able to share some real world use cases highlighting how AI is already helping address some of these top challenges, like clinician burnout, giving time back to clinicians, improving recruiting and scheduling, and reducing costs. So, John, I'm curious, where have you seen some of the greatest opportunities for AI to make a real impact in healthcare?
Yeah, thanks, Heather. We can walk through a few of these use cases now to just show some practical examples, and maybe we can start with some on the talent and staffing side of things. If you see here, our first use case is we've actually seen this case where Advent Health, they were facing a significant labor shortage that was marked by retirements and burnout, and they needed to quickly hire and retain qualified and ready to work nursing talent, particularly in critical roles that are hard to fill. And so you can see in the middle there, the solution that they implemented was Workday's Hired Score, which is an AI-powered candidate matching and screening tool. And with that, you can see the result there on the right, that they actually were able to uncover dozens of qualified ICU nurses. And the key here was that they were actually internal candidates. And these candidates were previously overlooked mainly due to siloed data, which we'll actually talk about kind of towards the end of our session today. But the result here is that recruiters achieved a huge improvement in screening efficiency, and they filled 72% of open requisitions with existing talent, which shortened the hiring cycle and helped them fill critical clinical roles. So in this first case, we can see the impact of AI is that the talent you may need may already be on your payroll, and AI can simply help you find them faster.
Wow, so John, maybe it's more of a visibility problem that orgs are dealing with in many cases.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're exactly right. And we've also seen some cases in this next use case is a transition that healthcare organizations and companies that support healthcare systems use AI tools such as Eightfold to diversify candidate pools, write inclusive job descriptions, and quickly surface candidates with complementary skills. So in this specific example we saw with Boston Scientific, they had Eightfold's AI-powered talent intelligence, and they had a strategic solution. What that allowed them to do was enhance the candidate experience and improve internal mobility. So kind of that external candidate and the internal candidate experience. You can see there on the right that what this really ultimately led to is 600, over 600 talent communities. They were able to create and building a candidate pipeline And they also had a huge uptick in career site visitors that had AI recommended jobs that were visible to them and appearing to them that completed applications. What this led to was a huge lift in their application conversion rate with an AI-powered career site. So really in this case with Boston Scientific and other healthcare organizations and those that support them, the impact see here is really multifaceted. Healthcare organizations can now simplify hiring, enhance the candidate experience, and improve internal mobility, which is a win all around. So these are just a few examples from the talent and recruiting side, which is really just one piece of the puzzle. So I'm curious, as you kind of alluded to at the top of the session, Heather, what about providers who are struggling with staffing demands and who are burnt out on documentation? Where have you seen AI make an impact there? It seemed to really resonate with our audience in that poll that we saw. So how can we see some examples that ultimately give them time back for patient care?
Yeah, great. I'd love to talk about this. So, a great example and use case of AI making an impact with staffing demands and ultimately giving time back is Mount Sinai's success story of using AI demand forecasting to make smarter, cost-effective staffing decisions. Their AI tool was able to predict patient volume spikes weeks earlier than traditional models, enabling for proactive staff reallocation and ultimately avoiding costly last-minute agency hires, which we know can really impact the bottom line. So overall, they were able to reduce their annual labor spend by $5 million. And so much data is out there that shows accurate matching of staffing to meet patient demands typically reduces overtime costs by 15 to 25% and their agency spend by 20 to 40% percent. But you have the added benefit of decreased staff workloads, giving caregivers more time back for patient care. So the impact with that is clear by anticipating patient surges before they happen. That means fewer last minute high cost staffing fixes that impact your bottom line and ultimately patient care. But now let's talk about hey, how AI can give even more time back to those on the front lines of care. So this next use case is about the clinician burnout crisis, which we know we're hearing about all the time. And, the audience even said that was one of the top challenges they resonate with. But also, clinician burnout's real, but so is documentation burnout. The majority of clinicians spend over half of their day on EHR documentation. So they're spending more time with the computer than with patients. And I know this was definitely true for me when I worked bedside. Oftentimes I felt like the computer was my patient. So it's really no surprise that the EHR is frequently cited as one of the leading drivers of clinician burnout. But luckily, this is starting to change. At Atrium Health, the clinicians using ambient AI were able to cut time spent in the EHR by 33%, and they reduced their call center workload for nurses by 40%, given valuable time back to patient care. And in other health systems who've piloted AI documentation tools to ease the burden of administrative tasks and scheduling, they have given clinicians over 40 hours back a month. So that's a full work week back. So imagine that value of giving every clinician a week back each month to do that, what they were called to do and why they got into healthcare, which is caring for patients. So the impact of this is when clinicians spend less time documenting and more time connecting, we see burnout and turnover decreases, which allows both patients and clinicians to thrive because the difference between burning out and thriving often comes down to time, and we're seeing AI be able to give that precious time back to them.
Thanks, Heather. Those are really exciting enhancements that seem like they're truly making an impact. And it's really powerful to see how giving providers time back with patients ultimately reduces burnout and improves patient care, which seems like a win all around. So even with this exciting technology developing at such a fast pace, there are some barriers that healthcare organizations should consider. So Heather, what are some of the largest barriers that you've seen in healthcare as far as organizations facing and trying to get AI ready?
John, I'd say the biggest barrier right now to AI adoption in healthcare isn't technology, it's actually trust. As you can see by the picture on the slide, across the country, nurses are speaking out with a clear message to trust nurses, not AI. So they're not rejecting the innovation. I want to be clear on that. They're demanding patient protection and a voice in how AI is designed and deployed. And the concern is real. Studies show that 60% of nurses don't trust AI or their employers to put patient safety first. Many fear the algorithms that are built on poor quality or biased data could lead to automation that overrides clinical judgment and ultimately puts patients at risk. And as clinicians, we have an ethical charge to do no harm. So, again, let me be clear, this movement isn't anti-AI, it's a call for responsible AI, systems that are safe, transparent, and guided by human oversight. Because the future of healthcare depends on earning the trust of those on the front line so technology can truly enhance care. So, I mean, I believe that AI can support and empower clinicians, and if they trust it, I see it removing the burdens keeping them from care.
That's such an important point. I think, we see AI impacting so many different industries, and a lot of organizations are just using it to maybe just check a box. But as you were just alluding to in healthcare, that's not an option because patient well-being is on the line and responsible AI is a must. So Heather, I'm curious if you could share any guidance healthcare organizations can follow for structure for AI governance. I know you mentioned the Joint Commission recently released some guidance at the beginning of the session today.
Yeah, sure, John. I'd be happy to share some insights on AI governance. So, in healthcare, AI succeeds or fails based on governance. So, without it, even the best AI strategy won't stick. So, the Joint Commission, they recently released the responsible use of AI in healthcare guidance and a safe AI toolkit. I think it's a great resource that lays out practices like audit trails, bias monitoring, and accountability frameworks to help build that trust. As you can see on the screen, we've provided a QR code to find this responsible AI guidance and toolkit for your reference. And I really believe that the most successful organizations don't just implement AI for clinicians, they actually take the time and build it with them, earning their trust. So, my recommendation is for health systems to form multidisciplinary AI governance teams that include clinicians, ensures transparent accountability, and actively involve end users in AI decisions to drive better adoption and foster that trust. Because when clinicians have a voice, adoption accelerates. So, to all the clinicians out there, your voice matters now. I recommend get involved to help shape these tools before they shape your work like the EHR did. And I know no one wants a repeat of that. So, John, beyond, the trust and governance, I've heard a lot of talk about another big barrier in AI adoption is around the massive amounts of data healthcare is drowning in that just isn't ready to power AI. So, do you have any insights for the audience on about this barrier and getting their data AI ready?
Yeah, you're exactly right, Heather. Happy to speak to that a little bit. When it comes to AI in healthcare, one of the biggest misconceptions is assuming that the data is ready. And in reality, most health systems are sitting on a gold mine of information that's trapped in silos. Up to 60% of healthcare data lives in disconnected systems like EHRs, HR systems, financial systems, and scheduling platforms, each telling a slightly different story. And so this fragmentation, what it ultimately leads to is leaders having to piece together reports instead of making real-time decisions around staffing, budgeting, patient care.
John, I have to say this slide has given me a little bit of anxiety because I experienced this data fragmentation and all these disconnected systems firsthand when I worked bedside. And let me tell you, it made my job so much harder than it should have been.
Yeah, I could imagine. Does anyone else have the same sentiment as Heather when looking at this slide? I feel like the answer is probably yes. Seeing the myriad of systems and the myriad of flows of data and where those end up on reports. Without integration and governance, even the smartest AI is going to fail to deliver meaningful insights. We actually saw a study from Gartner and McKinsey that found 70% of failed AI initiatives in healthcare stem from poor data readiness. So not bad algorithms and not lack of innovation, but fragmented and unreliable data. So before chasing the next big AI solution, organizations need to fix the foundation because AI is only as good as the data that you feed it. So without that clean, governed, and quality data, you're really just automating chaos and eroding trust. When we integrate before we innovate, that's when AI truly becomes intelligent.
John, thanks for sharing these insights about how important it is to ensure that the data is ready and integrated before leveraging it with any potential AI tools. So tell me, is this something that the Groove can help organizations with?
Absolutely. When it comes to AI in healthcare, success doesn't start with the algorithms, kind of like I was just mentioning before. It really starts with alignment, readiness, and trust. And that's where the Groove can come in and help. We partner with healthcare organizations to prepare the foundation for AI success, not just technically, but organizationally and culturally. So you can see kind of on the screen, I'm going to walk through some of the key offerings that we have here at the Groove. And I'll first start in the top left there with our data readiness. And we focus on that because integration must come before intelligence. So our data services help break down silos around EHR, HR systems, finance systems, and scheduling systems so leaders can finally work from a single source of truth. So what that entails from assessing data hygiene to building governance frameworks, we make sure your data is clean, connected, and ready to power AI trusted insights. And next, moving to the right there, our org readiness is fueled by our advisory services and change management. And what this does is it ensures that people and not just platforms are ready for what's next. So through our discovery assessments, we help you identify high impact use cases where AI can make the biggest impact, prioritize what matters most to your workforce, and start small to show quick wins where ROI and clinician benefit are clear.
John, I think that's so important. I've conducted many discovery assessments, meaning business users and clinicians where they actually work to listen and observe. And the insights gained on workflows, their pain points, and potential roadblocks are so valuable to ensure the success of any initiative, including AI, but also to define the problem you are trying to solve for, to be able to come up with the right solution. So I mean, you must meet people where they are and let their voices be heard. I feel like that's where the real magic is.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for that insight on the importance of discovery. I think another piece of this that's really crucial that we offer is the governance. And so if you look there on the bottom left of my screen, we actually guide you through a crawl, walk, and run approach to AI governance. And this helps scale responsibly with the right team, the right approach, and with the right strategy. This encompasses compliance and audit trails and bias monitoring, transparent communication throughout your journey. And then finally, on the bottom right there, we ensure strategic alignment with our user adoption and AI assessments. So we actually go beyond training. We uncover engagement barriers and usability issues and workflow misalignment. We design strategies that make learning intuitive, empower clinicians, and help your teams fully leverage the technology that you already have that sets the foundation so you can expand and grow with the future technology. So, really, in summary, the Groove helps you define your strategy, strengthen your data, and prepare your people, creating a confident AI-ready organization where technology supports better care, stronger teams, and measurable results. Because the path to AI adoption, it doesn't have to be complicated or risky. Our promise is simple, responsible innovation that delivers real results while keeping people at the center. So in choosing a partner for your AI journey, don't just look for a vendor, look for a catalyst. The Groove is that catalyst. We combine healthcare expertise with solutions that are responsibly designed, governed, and implemented to simplify operations, deliver ROI, and give time back to patient care. So now that we've talked through all these ways the Groove can help kind of navigate that complex healthcare environment, Heather, I want to turn it back over to you. Can you bring us back to the why of all of this and what's really prompting this conversation in the first place?
Yeah, thanks, John. So, as we wrap up today's webinar, before jumping into the live Q&A, let's bring this back to why we're doing this and why this conversation is relevant. AI in healthcare, it isn't about replacing people. It's actually about restoring them. It's about giving the workforce back the time, clarity, and confidence to do what they do best, and that's care for patients. So when we use AI to lift administrative burdens, connect fragmented systems, and build trust through governance and transparency, we're not just improving operations, we're actually healing the workforce. Because when caregivers thrive, patients thrive. When the data flows, care improves. And when technology serves people, not the other way around, we can move from burnout to balance and from efficiency to empathy because that's the future we're building together. It's a healthcare system where AI helps every clinician, every leader, and every patient give that experience a little bit more humanity in every single interaction. All right, so now we have about 5 minutes left for some Q&A. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen.
Perfect. Thanks, Heather and John. We did get a few questions in. The first one is, how can AI help address clinician burnout without compromising patient safety?
All right, I'll take that one. So I think AI can reduce clinician burnout, like as we mentioned, without compromising patient safety by just giving time back for those clinicians to focus on patient care. And we can do that by automating time-consuming administration tasks like documentation, scheduling, and call center triage. So these tools that are, AI-powered documentation, scheduling, automated patient outreach can actually give clinicians hours back while improving accuracy and reducing errors. So it helps clinicians spend less time on the computer and more time with their patients, where I believe that's where safety is the strongest. So, give them a voice, involve them, have that strong governance as well.
Great. And then the second question is, what steps should a healthcare organization take before implementing AI solutions?
I can take that one. I think that kind of goes back to that slide I was speaking to before about starting with data readiness. I think, we talked about the failed AI initiatives, how a lot of them start from poor data quality. And so before deploying AI, I think that organizations should consider integrating siloed data sources, establishing those governance frameworks that we were talking about for compliance and bias monitoring. And then to Heather's point that she brought up earlier, involving clinicians in the design and rollout. I think that goes back to building trust, and that's a crucial part of it as well. So that's kind of going to ensure that implementing AI solutions is not just going to automate chaos.
Great. Thank you, John. We have time for two more. The next one is, how do you overcome trust issues among clinicians regarding AI adoption?
Yeah, I can take that one, John. So, kind of mentioned a lot of that throughout, and like I said, as a clinician, I can definitely attest to this. So it really comes down to collaboration, transparency, and letting them see real, measurable results to build trust with them. So you can overcome those trust issues. Like I said, just involve them from day one. So let them help shape the use cases, validate the data, test the workflows. So it feels like the AI isn't something that was just thrust upon them or being done to them. It's something that they have built with them. So trust, like I said, is earned through, I think, that transparency and communicating exactly what the tool will do and won't do. So when they have a voice in the process, they end up trusting the technology. And I actually found a stat earlier that said health systems that created robust for AI governance committees with frontline nurses and physicians actually saw 30% faster adoption.
Thank you, Heather. And then our final question is, how do you ensure AI solutions remain compliant with evolving regulations?
I can take that one, Heather. I think that really starts with kind of what Heather was even mentioning before with the well-timed release of that toolkit from Joint Commission. Compliance is starting with governance frameworks aligned to standards like that. And so that responsible use of AI guidance that they released really recently actually is really well-timed. That's going to include things like the audits and the bias checks, clear accountability structures, transparent communication with stakeholders. So I think beyond that, organizations should also monitor regulatory updates and adapt their AI models accordingly. because I think building governance into that rollout process ensures that compliance and mitigates the risk.
Thanks, John. Thank you for joining our final part to our AI for You webinar series. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out and look out for the recording.
Yeah. Thanks for joining everyone today.
Thank you, everybody.